Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me today, this is very exciting for me. It's another new look FMTeam. We have D-Boy Plays, we have Jebaroo, and joining us below me, for the audio listeners, he's not actually below. I'm not sat on top of him. That would be. It's not University Challenge. That would be weird. But we've got the newest member of the FM team. We've got the Steak Bake as well. Look at this. What a wonderful group of people. Steak, how are you, buddy? How's it going?
I am really good, thank you, Rich. How about yourself?
Adequate. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good. I'm back. I wasn't here last week. I went away on a holiday, which was ever so nice. And then I came back and we listened back to last week's episode. I thought, what a wonderful job Steak Bake did. The man deserves a permanent place at the table. So now here you are. Congratulations, buddy. How does it feel?
I'm really excited to be here. You know what? It's an absolute honor to be on the podcast. It's a podcast I listen to regularly, and I absolutely love it. You're all fantastic, and you're all my chums as well. Well, at least I like to think you are. So it's lovely to be around lovely, excellent, beautiful people that all look slightly similar in various different ways.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. There's absolutely a little bit of that, isn't there? Jeb, how do you feel about your new close proximity workplace associate?
What the hell's going on? Wait a minute. Wait. What
Oh.
the hell's this? Right. Anyway.
Hey!
I forgot about my catchphrase that I have.
Catchphrases.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I fear change. What's going on? This. There wasn't a memo or anything like that. I mean, I guess I got put up with it. I mean, Callum's not here, so positive. So that's good. I assume he sacked him because he hosted last week and decided to talk like a pirate. Who starts a podcast in any way with "ahoy mateys"?
Yeah, he really lent into that, didn't he?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That.
I like how in our group chat he put, I've got the intro sorted. And it's like, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Don't worry, lads.
It wasn't
I've
just
got
like off
this.
the cuff. Yeah, it wasn't just like, whoops, I've said ahoy mateys, what for done. No, he just went for it. Yeah, so that was a thing.
It paid off though, I think. Pirate move.
Did it?
It got a title.
Did it? Okay.
Squad Plan R.
Yeah.
Helped.
Yeah, that was something. That really was something,
as
wasn't
well.
it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah,
I guess we didn't have to show off that Steak Bake was a guest that week. It was just because he's here now all the time.
He's here. He's here permanently. It's more. Yeah, this. I don't want to refer to the job offer as an apology.
Yeah.
So we forgot to put you in the title. Just come back forever. That's essentially how it works. Just as a spoiler to future guests, if you see your name in the podcast title, soz in advance. You weren't successful. There you go. So we keep adding people. So we're now up to a team of 5, which is wonderful. We talked just before we went live that we could feasibly be a 5-side football team. I think 3 more guests, and we've got the making of a ska band. So very exciting. What a time to be alive. Jeb, I believe you can play the saxophone. Is that correct?
No, I can just skank. That's basically
perfect. You can be like the dancing man.
Yeah,
every band needs a best.
From the Mighty Boss Tones. There you go. That could be you. There you go.
Yep, that's the impression I get.
There you go. This guy, he gets it. D, how are you, buddy? Lovely to see you.
I'm doing very, very well. I made up for my mess up last week by waking up at 7 a.m. today to make sure I was very awake. I had my scrambled eggs, had a can of Monster because that's what you need after 2 nights of gigging, and feeling fresh.
Feeling ready to go, ready to rock, as they say.
So you woke up sugar crash about half an hour through.
It's already started to come in.
It comes in weight. Yeah. So last week a little bit late. This week up at 7. Can I introduce you to the concept of the middle ground? Just somewhere in the
what the hell is that?
Betwixt the two.
Whoa. You can't come in and start stealing catchphrases or adapting them, all right?
Sorry,
right,
Jeff. Sorry. I don't know what you mean. That could be my catchphrase.
I don't know what you mean. Yeah.
I did set 5 alarms and I was awake for all of them. So it was just, that
Perfect.
was fun. Just sitting at my desk and just getting my phone shout at me every 15 minutes. But there we go.
There you go. That's key. Yeah, you can't just go around taking an established catchphrase and then just adapting it to your own means and trying to make it your own thing. Anyway, Steak Bake, here we land. It's lovely to have him. It's lovely to have him in. Oh, what a horrible social media trend that is. What a horrible social media trend. Although I like the ones that are actually doing it to laugh, because there's one guy who went, "Here we skedaddle," and I thought that's actually quite good.
I like the American kid who's like 12 years old who's getting in before Romano to announce players, and he's getting millions of views.
Oh, good. Somebody needs to dethrone him, and then just to say, so Romano's going to be in. I think they've announced that he's going to be in next year's EAFC in the career mode. He's going to be announcing players in the career mode. So I think for the one after that, it needs to be that little 12-year-old American boy on his iPhone 3 with no camera quality. Mwah, perfect. It's the circle of life, and it moves us all. It does. It moves us all. We can't say anymore, otherwise Elton John will sue us. So we should probably move on. And can I blow all your minds collectively for a second here, fellas? Football Manager. I know. Imagine that. What a concept. What an experience for everybody involved. We're here to talk about it, shockingly enough. Why wouldn't we be? Because that's kind of what the podcast is about, vaguely. By the way, just Dave Goodger, if you're watching this and live tweeting this again, just I don't know how many minutes it's been, but this many until we started talking about FM. You're welcome, buddy. Lads, Football Manager. We had a little chat before we went live about what we should be talking about today. And I started by just clicking through some tabs on FM and just thinking, right, which ones of these don't I use very often? Which, shockingly enough, it's quite a few of them if you've listened to previous episodes and know how I play the game. We had a little look at one of the tabs. It was right down the very, very bottom of most people's lists. The Development Centre. It's there. It exists in the game. I don't use it very often, but we looked at it. We looked at the Development Centre, and it got us to thinking in the broader spectrum of the Development Centre, what it's all about. Your club culture. A lot of the time, you take over a new club in Football Manager, and the directors will sit down and say to you, right, we want to develop a culture of youth at this football club. We want you to take advantage of our club's fantastic youth system. The Development Centre plays very, very nicely into that, because obviously it's how you monitor your young players. But how many of us, realistically speaking, when we're playing FM, is that something we're actually doing? Is that something we're actually concentrating on as part of our wider Football Manager experience? Steak, as the new man on the team, I said, we'll start with you, buddy. Is the Development Centre, is cultivating, an environment where you can, develop these young players? Is that something that you spend a lot of time doing in your broader FM experience?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's a little bit of a luxury in that most of the time, unless you're doing a themed save where you're specifically targeting youth players, you tend to only be really extremely focused on youth if you have the luxury of great finances, great facilities, good coaching, you're winning things. That tends to be how my saves tend to go anyway. So I have 2 saves. I have a stream save, which is Santa Clara, which we have very little money, and the board actively say we're not improving the youth facilities, and therefore I don't really click on the Development Centre much, because I don't have much in the way of youth. I think I've got 1 3-star potential youth player, and that's 3-star potential for the Portuguese mid-table, so it's a bit meh. Whereas I also have my other network save, which I discussed last week on the podcast, where I have it with Spoose, and I am Portsmouth. And at this point in the save, we are multiple Champions League winner, top of the Premier League every season, and I have a bit of a loan farm, I would suggest. So the Development Centre tends to be where I keep track of that. I think I've got about 30 players out on loan at the moment, and maybe half of them are 4.5, 5-star potential youth candidates that I've signed from various locations around the globe. the loan tab in the development center is where I keep an eye on whether they're hitting their targets, set a couple of targets for some of them. You can recall them from loan from there, and you can kind of see whether they're making the right appearances, playing in the right position, that kind of thing, whether they're developing. I particularly like the progress graphs that you get. You can kind of see whether they're actually improving out on loan or whether they're having a bit of a slump. And that tends to be where I organize that from. But yeah, like I said, it's a bit of some saves, I don't touch it at all. And other saves, I'm immersed in it fully.
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head early with one of the key points there. It's that I think it's very dependent on the kind of save that you're doing. I know, for example, D and I this year have been chopping and changing clubs quite a lot in our saves. So there's not really been the opportunity, like for me this year, to really, cultivate that youth aspect of the team, to really start bringing the reserve players through. Some of the clubs have got to, if they've had a decent youth system and had some players that are just about ready, I'm like, fantastic, I'll bring them in. But I've not really been anywhere long enough to really, that loan farm, it's something that if you do one club save, for example, it tends to pop up quite frequently. But it's not something that I've really stayed long enough at a club to really cultivate. One of the things I really rely on, if there have been clubs where I've been like, right, this player has got bags of potential, he needs a season somewhere just to bed him into first team football. The development centre isn't something I tend to rely on. But when I'm arranging the loan, if I specifically will compile the match reports, that's something that, again, because it's just a little constant reminder of, he was quite good. If I send him out on loan, I'm going to forget he exists. But if I get my assistant to send me a match report every couple of weeks, that's actually going to be really, really beneficial to me, because I'm going to remember that play, because I have object permanence with people as well as things. And if I can't see that player on my squad screen, I'm going to forget that he exists completely. So I do tend to rely on those a little bit, but that's kind of about as far into it as I get. I mean, Jeb, have you had any absolute diamonds come through the ranks of places like Morecambe or Sheffield United this year that you've needed to keep track on? Or I suppose with a club at that level, so somebody like Morecambe, if you have a promising young player, are they straight into the first team?
There's a couple that have come around. I think Kieran Clark was probably the obvious one, because he's basically Marcus Dacker's light, because he's 6'5" and got an afro as well. So if he doesn't head it, it just lands in his hair and he runs it into the goal. Works quite
Perfect.
well. Yeah, to be fair, youth development's been, I think it's been difficult in FM24 and actually last year as well. I've not seen anyone particularly come through like my own ranks. They get to a certain level and then they just kind of stagnate. Okay, you've got to get them into the first team thing. But I think it's just the pressure of modern football in general. Is bringing in those youth players is very difficult to do unless they are absolutely outstanding. But there's not that many around, unfortunately. And I do play quite a lot with the development centre. I always make sure I get a decent feeder club that we have, so we can loan the players out. So you're a couple of divisions below, you make sure they've got decent training facilities. I'm quite picky on when people approach me for loans. I want money off them, and I want money off them. If they're not going to play them, they're paying me 100%. Like that they need to play them, just to try and force that issue. Usually I just get 100% of the wages because they don't play them, because that's how the AI managers work. I think it needs a little bit, the development centre needs a bit more development, you could say. But I do like the style of reporting you get on it. Obviously, we all use the Saskin, so it comes up with maybe a little bit different way to look at it. But it shows how they are developing. If people do drop off, you need to go pay attention to their training or put them in with the first team for training, etc. But in terms of actual players that have brought through, even looking at Sheffield United, even looking at Morecambe, I've not actually brought that many players through. Definitely Wolves and Liverpool. There's nothing been brought through on the network save. I mean, I've only managed 4 clubs officially this season, so it's kind of difficult to say.
If there's a rookie numbers, you need to pump those numbers up. I've heard staying at a club for more than 2 seasons is very last year.
Madness.
Constantly on the move. D, as a man with a heavily stamped passport this year on Football Manager, any joy with developing youth, with bringing those youth players through into that first team and taking advantage of features like the development centre?
Well, it's interesting, like you say, if you're doing a one club save, you can really you can start to make your youth centre, and you can sign foreign players that you can bring into, so you get the trained at club. On the journeyman though, I mean, I've on the meds on pause at the moment, but I've done 27 seasons, and I think in all 27 seasons, I think I had, whilst I was managing a club, one good player come through. I had a few youth intakes were like, oh, this is going to be a golden generation, and you sort of look at it and you think, yeah, we are Manchester 62 in Gibraltar, so let's take like golden generation very loosely, and then you get a player come through and you look at their attributes and you go, oh, this is awful. This isn't going to help me on any level. But yeah, it's doing a journeyman. It does make it a bit more challenging, I think, trying to cultivate a youth setup and things. Like you say, you can ask for improvements, but now that I've jumped back into my retro Albion save, that I'm now starting to adopt a few of those things that you've mentioned, where you try and, like, bring in a few people, send them out on loan, keep an eye on things. I've got a 19-year-old Toby Alderweireld out on loan. I think he's at QPR. I've got Shinji Kagawa rocking it up at Norwich, having a bit of fun. So it's like, okay, cool. They're going and getting game time in the Championship, and hopefully developing. And like I say, Dev Centre, you can keep an eye on all your loans there. That's where I'll probably put most of my attention. Just sort of check in on the loans, see where people are. See where people are and how they're getting on. Just realised I sent Daniel Sturridge out on loan to Charlton as well, so that's fun. I did, yeah. You don't look at a save for 2 days and you forget everything. But yeah, I keep an eye more on the loans page. But in a journey, I mean, how have you found it, Rich? Like in a journeyman, you might get one or two little nuggets of gold that pop through, and you're like, brilliant. They can come straight into the first team, especially with the clubs you've sort of managed as well, because you've had a lot of teams that are in those continental competitions where you need the trained at club. And that's a really big, that's where the kicking can come in, especially, I mean, again, same maybe for you as well, Steak, when you're, building up Pompey, that's when you've almost got to you've got to almost think, okay, I'm aiming for Champions League. Let's try and find a couple of players beforehand. So when we get to that level, I've got some absolute worldies ready to go. But yeah.
I've been very lucky in terms of the bigger clubs that I've managed, that I've had the success with. Especially, I think Dortmund Dortmund has been my most successful spell at a club over the course of the save. So again, spoilers for people who've not been in my streams recently. So I did 2 seasons at Dortmund, accidentally won 2 Champions Leagues, and then won a Bundesliga in the second season. So dethroned Bayern Munich, which means I got to leave the club. But I was blessed at Dortmund because their 3 best players were all youth academy products. So I had a world-class central defensive midfielder, I had a world-class shadow striker, and I had a very, very good left back, who all came up through the club's youth system. So when it came to that European registration, they instantly ticked multiple boxes. They were trained by the club, trained in nation, and that helped enormously. If it hadn't been for those 3, when I was then looking at kind of the other players that were there or thereabouts in the Dortmund setup, none of them came close to the ability of those 3. And I know that all 3 of them were very, very good, especially my defensive midfield. I think Peters, his name was. They were all wonderful. They were all, I was very, very fortunate, but there was nobody else who was kind of, that close to their level. So if I'd stayed longer, which again, I said early doors, the objective was to try and win the Bundesliga. And if I hadn't done it in season 2, I would have stayed again and tried to do it in season 3. Those 3 Dortmund players would have always been the backbone of things like European registration. I didn't have that many good prospects in the reserves. They just weren't there, which for a club like Dortmund, you'd think would be quite surprising. I took over Dortmund 7 seasons into the save, I think. And in 7 seasons, they'd produced 3 phenomenal players. Now, if you were to look at that in real life, you'd say that's actually not a bad return. Like, this club's youth system has produced 3 very good, 2 world-class players, and a third that is also pretty good. That's not a terrible return. I think when you look at it from a football manager point of view, for a club like Dortmund, that doesn't quite seem like enough. I think it's difficult to kind of separate reality and game. So you look at that team and you go, well, there's 3 first team players they developed in 7 years. You would expect there to be 5 maybe, and they hadn't quite accomplished that. And then you go through reserves, you go and you look at the second string players, and you're like, none of these are even close to the ability of the worst of the 3. You know, I'm looking at the defensive midfielder now, Vincent Peters, who, interestingly enough, after I left Dortmund, Pep Guardiola took over and then looked at Vincent Peters and going, yeah, that is the best defensive midfielder in the game. I'm going to sell him to Barcelona for £247 million. Well done, Pep. That's the move. That's the thing to do there.
Smart man.
Very, very smart man. When it's come to promising young players on FM24, because I haven't stayed at clubs long enough to kind of cultivate my own, I've been heavily reliant on just bringing them in from elsewhere or trying to bring them in from elsewhere, which is why I think tabs like the Development Centre haven't received enough love from me this year as they would if I'd stuck at the same club for 5, 6, 7 years. So it's something that I feel like I've missed out on. But at the same time, I think, Jeb, I think you're very right as well. It feels like it's a difficult thing to do, like to properly cultivate that, especially through your own system. I mean, Steak, I know you said, you've obviously got your wonder kid farm almost, where they're just constantly off, but you're bringing them in, like I say, from all over the world. Shockingly enough, I'm imagining you've probably got 1 or 2 South Americans in there, because they do seem to pop up from that kind of area of the world quite frequently on Football Manager, weirdly enough. Can't quite figure out why. But of that list, if you were to like go through that list, how many of those wonder kids that you've just got shipped out getting first team experience elsewhere, how many have actually come through your youth system, would you say, as a ratio compared to ones you've brought in from elsewhere?
Oh, it's minuscule, tiny amount. So I had my first 5-star potential youth player in the Premier League, and we are in season 13. And he's unreal. He's called Schmalhofer. He came in at 16, and he already had like 16 finishing and 15 pace and things like that. And I was like, wow, best player I've seen in a long time. Maybe best player I've seen this year from many people, actually. But then I was like, oh, but that just makes all these other youth players that I thought were okay and might make it one day look really bad. And going through it now, I think I've got one which I got in the first season, who I loaned out every single year. And he's just happened to become like sub-level good, but he's never going to get any better. He's called Bayan Dickey, great name, by the way. And he's kind of made my bench, but he's never going to be a world beater. And then that's pretty much it. So 2 players in 13 years. Admittedly, Portsmouth start with a pretty naff youth and facilities, and I've had to like beg the board over and over again. It's got to the point now where I think I'm at 16 on the youth facilities, 20 on everything else, but they won't improve the youth facilities anymore. And I can't get that next stage where I feel like I'm churning a couple of players out. And I just feel like it's kind of stagnated. So pretty much everyone is brought in. I've brought in quite a lot of English players in an attempt to try and get that homegrown club, as Dee was mentioning. But it has, mostly South Americans. I'm seeing quite a few Argentinians here. And that most of them are loaned out to my partner club, which, to be fair, is not a real connection. It's the other player in the network save decided to take a challenge club this time rather than managing at the top level. And so I've just loaned him all my players. So he's doing quite well now with all these youth players. And then I think I've got PSG's first choice goalkeeper is on loan from me, which is a bit of a strange youth player to loan out, but he's not very good. And again, he's one that came through my academy. I don't think is very good, but he's on loan at PSG and starting, so maybe he's all right. But yeah, I really struggled to find actual players to come through my youth system this year, to the point where you do have to go out and farm, and that's why you have to have a little bit of money. And it's quite a nice soft spot as you go through into the Premier League, where you first get that TV money, and you can pick up a few £6-7 million South American players, and that's a really nice spot to be in. But when you're in the Championship, you don't have that spare cash, and then it's really hard to form that. So you do have to have success to be able to build your youth, I think, which is why I think it's a bit of a luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very valid point. I mean, again, I'm going back through and I'm looking at some of the world-class players that have been generated kind of across my save, and there's a striker who's he arguably one of the best new gen players I've ever seen. His name's Lita Lifasiu, and he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. He came through FCSB in Romania. He came through their youth system, and I've gone back and I've had a little look through the club. I mean, they've got really good youth recruitment. They've got a really good academy. He is, realistically speaking, again, I'm in 2033 now, so I've rattled through the save comparatively, and he's the only player of any note their club has produced in 10 seasons. Everybody else is just a little bit, they're okay, but nobody to his level. But again, they are a club that have comparatively high rated. They've got good youth recruitment. They've got their youth facilities are better than their first team training facilities. They've got really, really good youth coaching. He is the only very, very good new gen that club has produced in all that time. I mean, I'm looking at Porto again. 20 youth recruitment. I've got 19 academy coaching. My youth facilities are on par with my first team training facilities. I've looked at my B team. I've looked at my under 18s, and there is nobody in there of note. Absolutely nobody. I'm not looking at this Porto team. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you are destined for first team football in a season or two's time, because there's just nobody of that level. And it feels like it's a really, really difficult thing to do. I mean, I was talking to myself earlier in my save when I was at Ajax. I was like, oh, you know what, this would be fun to do. Just try and rely on the reserves, because Ajax have got a great youth system. No, I wouldn't have got anywhere close to doing it that way. I mean, Jeb, it's obviously, I know you've said it's something that you found difficult to cultivate this year, and especially last. Is it something that you've previously had any kind of success with, or is it similar to kind of Stakes experience? It's maybe one or two from your own club, and then you're just going and picking the best of the rest from elsewhere?
Yeah, I think picking up the best from elsewhere, like the next gen 50s, always get in there and just like bang, 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 just scan them all. Let's see how good they are. I think there was one we found on the Sheffield United side who had like plus 15s in everything mental, and he was 17. I was like, I want him. I really want him, like right now. Like, but then, like even on the Sheffield United side, there's existing players that they'd already brought in before I came in. One of the ones, Cucurella, who's the centre back, who's 6'4". He's 21. I'll just double check his leadership, because I think he is my club captain as well. If I remember right. Yeah, he's leadership of 16. He's 6'4". I'll mention that again. He's got a jumping reach of 20, and he scored 11 goals in the championship. Obviously, all off corners, but yeah, just having that type of base. Actually, as a defender, his attributes are a bit rubbish. He's like 12 for marking, 14 for tackling. Like, it's not amazing, but he's just got that strength. But it's like it's that development. If you can find players elsewhere, I think Gonçalves, so that I have on the had on network save at Liverpool, at Wolves, who are want at Liverpool very obviously. He was just phenomenal. And actually, spoilers for later in the podcast, there is actually a youth player that I brought through, and he played a very, very vital role into what has happened at Sheffield United. Which, yes, so yeah,
interesting, yeah. It's a tricky thing to do. I would like to have more homegrown youth players in my teams. Maybe it's the direction now, because again, with FM25 now on the horizon, we're not a million miles away from FM25 coming out. As people are starting to, some people have already decided. Some people are starting to think about what they might want to do in terms of, streams, in terms of saves for next year. If we've talked a lot about one club saves recently. I know Kev was always wary of them because of the risk of failure, which is understandable. But then you look at the experience that Callum's had over the last couple of years, just doing 2 consecutive years with one club at Slough, and what a wonderful time he's having. it makes me look at it and go, oh, that could be really good fun though. And if it is the kind of thing that I was going to look at for FM25, it would have to be a priority, I think, because again, it's just an element of the game that I've found more challenging because it's been harder to do. Is it, you look at for example, look at Scandinavian clubs. If you do a longer term Scandinavian saves, you are essentially, the aims for your club to be successful are develop those comparatively promising players, ship them out to European clubs for £2 or £3 million each, and then reinvest that money back into the club. And essentially you turn the club into, you are the farm yourself, and that's how you make yourself sustainable and then be able to challenge for league titles. Try and adapt that philosophy to an English club, because again, it's, Southampton had that reputation for a little while, didn't they, of being that club with the really, really good youth system. Steak is, for the audio listeners, Steak is giving it massive thumbs up. He's cheering, he's whooping, he's muted himself, he's whooping and hollering. It's incredible. He's got a James Ward-Prowse shirt on. It's quite, oh my goodness gracious me. He's hugging a Theo Walcott body pillow. This is incredible stuff. Steak, calm down. Soz, mate. But they kind of,
my reputation.
FM25 network save, everyone just manages the rivals. Granted, you'd have to stay in the championship, Rich, but good work.
There you go. That's the spirit. Yeah. And then seeing who takes longest to get fired. There you go. That's the save.
We've all got to try and get relegated.
Yes, everyone has to try and get relegated and also not sacked.
I don't even have to try with Everton.
Oh, shots fired. Paddy Power have paid out on that. It's hilarious. Objectively very funny. Objectively very funny. That's happened so early
it was
in the
quite
season.
nice to see Callum just sat sad in his Everton shirt yesterday.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah,
bless him. What a sad boy. Look, it's the kind of thing I would like to do more youth-based things next year. Because again, it's just something that I just haven't had the desired experience with this year, I suppose. But again, that a big part of that, I think, comes down to the nature of the save that I've put together. I've put myself in a position where I'm not going to get to cultivate that youth system. The one thing I do find quite interesting actually about that, and again, I'm interested to get your guys' takes on this. I have found in terms of board requests this year, one of my least successful board requests, I think, has been any form of improvements to youth facilities, to scouting range. I think I'm speaking more from experience in the network save than in what's the story former glory, because again, I've been at United in the network save for about 3 or 4 years now. So, and again, the youth recruitment there hasn't been great. So that's been something I've been trying to do. And I think with the United save as well, I think it's one of my board objectives is to, take advantage of the under 23s and take advantage of the youth system. But if I go to them and say, hey, can I have a little bit of money to invest into this? The answer is, generally speaking, absolutely not. How dare you? You've got money, go and sign players. D, have you actually had any success when it's come to actually requesting specific improvements to your youth system or your scouting range?
Well, that's interesting because I think the thing with scouting range, it's not too bad. I mean, you can manually adjust that. There's you can just change it to look at the world. You can set your age range to 15 to 21, look for anyone that's labeled Wonder Kid, and then you're golden. But in terms of actually developing it through the board, I loaded up on the Med just to kind of be like, oh, where did things end with Napoli? And I just went onto the Club Vision page, and one of the things that they wanted to do was develop the best youth system in the country, which I failed. But the reason I'm going to put that down to failing is because we're 49 million in the red, and every single time I make requests for that, they go, oh no, we haven't got any money. And in Serie A, you just don't make profit, or at least I don't make profit with any team. But it just seems to go downhill from there. But yeah, it's develop it actively using the youth system as a board objective. I've seen it a couple of times, a couple of teams that I've been at on this journey, and I feel like it's tricky as well when you get those ones, because if you, like you say, if you don't have an exceptional youth setup, and you can't improve it, or I think there's a weird bug in the game that when you get to like 15 or 16 on the youth recruitment setting, it just won't improve. It just won't get better, even though, because apparently there's like real fine margins between 15 and 20, but fine. But yeah, when that's like a board expectation, they want you to develop youth, and the players don't come through. It can be. It just makes you feel like, well, I'm going to lose my job over essentially like a random nature within the game, because it feels entirely random sometimes with the youth setup. Like last year I was at Rochdale for 19 years. I think I maybe had 2 that actually came through the youth setup, and only one of them broke into the first team. Like I say, with Napoli, I think I'd got a few players already in the first team that had come through, but they're not. I think one of them is a very, very good player and a first teamer, and the other one is a third choice goalkeeper. And that is it. That's all that sort of seems to have come through. So I think if you get lucky, you can get some real gifts come through, but it can be a bit of a pot luck. So yeah, developing the best youth system in the world, it's tricky when you have no money.
Yeah, I think weird that. Really weird.
Who'd have thought?
It's hard to be successful at something if you just physically don't have the finances to even attempt it. Weird. What? Yeah, strange that. I mean, same with you, I suppose, Jeb. Is it something that, again, because you've spent longer at clubs like Morecambe and Sheffield United, is it something that you've been looking at trying to implement, and then you've just been hampered by the board?
Morecambe, definitely. I couldn't do anything. That's kind of why I left them. Sheffield United, actually, while we were just sat discussing this, I just requested all the youth things to be upgraded, and they went, sure, fine. And then they rejected one, and I went, go on. And they went, okay, yeah, fine. So we're okay for that. But one of the actual objectives is have the best youth system in the country, which is a bit far-reaching for somebody that's in the Championship and competing against all the big money in the Premier League.
High.
Yeah, that is a big aim. They're satisfied with my progress so far, so I guess that's all right, but I don't know.
It's optimistic.
Yeah, he's optimistic. Obviously, the Wolves side of things, we were 300 billion in debt until we had the takeover, and then by the time we had that, I'd left, so... and I think they improved everything as I left, and that was it. So it's been difficult. Morecambe was, it was just, I couldn't improve anything. They just reduced budgets on absolutely everything, even after promotion. So it was like, what am I supposed to do here? My hands are tied. So that's how I ended up at Sheffield United. Board requests, it's hit and miss for me, actually. Like, I've had some really good ones. Like, they'll approve stuff quite easily sometimes, but it's obviously all dependent on budgets and where you are in finance, and then actually there's probably going to be an ambition level with the chairman or the people that's like a hidden attribute that you don't know anything about. So I don't know, it might just be people just throwing money at stuff. It was interesting to see. Like, I wouldn't imagine. I don't know if they could. Could they do it? Could they write it into like future versions of the game where you have like false chairman? I don't know if anybody's watched like this. The Sven documentary is very like profound and quite heartbreaking, actually. But Notts County, when he took over them, and they got to like November, and Sol Campbell went, "Oh, I can see this. I'm out of here." And Sven actually says, he goes, "I knew there was a problem because somebody hadn't paid the milkman." It's like of all the things, like play the milk. But yeah, could they write that into the? I don't know. I doubt they would. But could you get a dodgy chairman who goes, "Oh yeah, you can have everything"? Oh no, we got nothing, and they just pull everything out just immediately. And then
like the reverse of a sugar daddy.
Yeah, I guess that.
Great.
I think people have asked for it.
Diabetic stepdaddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It could be an interesting scenario that they could put in. Just like, yeah, you've got all the money in the world, but there'll be a surprise later on. They don't tell you what it is, and it just goes, "Yep, all the money out. Right, deal with it. Bye."
Like, Anzi we've signed Roberto Carlos, and we've signed all these players, and we're paying people 350 grand a week, which in like 2010 was unheard of. And then actually, no, I'm bored now, I'm going to go bye everybody, I'm taking all my money with me, and then the club are practically going to go into administration overnight. It's a tough one because it's the kind of thing that happens in reality.
Yeah.
Should it be the kind of thing that, you know, is included as a feature or something that could happen in Football Manager? But then again, at the same time, it's a really tough one because, you know, I suppose the question is, how much realism do you want? You know, how realistic do you want your experience on Football Manager to be this year? Are you going to be, you know, 5 or 6 seasons into a save, and then suddenly you get that message that, you know, you've cultivated the youth system, you know, you developed the club, and you've you know, a couple of promotions here and there, and the club's in a really positive place, and suddenly you get the message, oh, by the way, the chairman's just decided to leave and he's taking all of his money with him. Is that just your motivation to play that save gone now? So, well, what's the point? I've spent all this time trying to achieve this and it's just taken it away from me. What was the point in me even trying? Or do you crack your knuckles and go, right, this is really interesting now because I've got to suddenly be very clever in how I continue to grow the club, but I've also got to stabilize. You know, if it was me, you know, I'm fully the kind of person that, you know, I spent a couple of hours yesterday playing a game, and then I had a bad experience with the game, and because the game unfairly killed me. And I just turned the game off. Went, nope, that was not correct. That was nonsense. That was a bug, and it genuinely was. It's not just me. You know, I'm not blaming bugs on being bad at video games because I do that enough elsewhere anyway. And I was like, I don't want to play it anymore. I don't want to try and do that again. I had no motivation to go back and try and redo what I had just done because it had taken me ages and I'd been killed by nonsense. That, I think, would be my reaction to that kind of thing on FM, like, you know, crazy chairman. I was like, oh, you could pull the plug at any time. It could ruin everything. But again, there's always going to be that risk of that in real life. You
have enough volatile players. Like,
yeah,
some players, if you don't play them like for like 2 minutes, like bring them off the sub bench or you sub them off the kick off. Mm-hmm. They could arguably do that with, I guess, staff members. You could do it with as well. Like, just you could have a backstabbing assistant manager, just like
Iago.
yeah, exactly.
It's the parrot from Aladdin.
But yeah, that's what I mean. Just all those extra bits. Obviously, there's difficulty with them doing it with in real life people, which is why it needs to be like a new gen chairman or new gen assistant manager. But just adding those, I don't know. Like, I guess it's a bit reality TV-esque, but just it spices the game up a bit. I mean, especially like during times like this, just like you turn on the bad chairman like mod. It's like, well done, you've got the best youth system in the country. Now we're going to sell all of those youth players and the academy. Let's say I'm Sheffield United. We sold it to Sheffield Wednesday, and they've now got like that entire facility, and you've got nothing. Good day, sir.
I think the good day, sir, is what would really sell it for me.
Yeah, exactly.
In that capacity.
I want the Willy Wonka mod. That's what I want. So
yeah, and don't we all? And don't what you know, you have a trialist day, and 5 trialists arrive, but only 1 survives. Really sorry, but this 15-year-old Ecuadorian fell in a chocolate river, and we've not seen him since.
Wait a minute, why are all these like youth players 4'2"? What's going on? They're all really good at the flute. I don't know why.
Yeah, my backroom staff only communicate with me via singing when a youth player dies. It's really weird.
On the plus side, their teamwork is 20 and they're all in sync. So.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
really good at the offside trap. Straight. Emphasis on the trap part, right?
Yeah. Oh, imagine, yeah. Imagine the physio reports. Yeah, sorry, one of your youth team players ate some bubblegum. Now he's purple. Sorry. Give injection. Goal.
It'd be good to see the match engine render that in, though, wouldn't it?
It's so good.
Oh, the Violet Beauregard mod. Fantastic. There you go. Right, so we're playing a high press, and it's all squirrels. They're just going to... Oh, absolutely fantastic. Glass elevator smashes the ceiling at the end of every season.
Why is that player just staring at the big screen?
It was the first half, he was massive, but in the second half, very small. It's really, really confusing. Really confusing. Oh, somebody should write that story. It's fantastic. What an experience. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Football Manager mods. That's the dream, isn't it? That's absolutely the dream. I had so much fun with that. I've completely lost my train of thought from earlier as well, which is even better. Yes, off the rails. By the way, Steak, realistically speaking, you need to get it back on the rails in some capacity now. No pressure, mate. No pressure.
Okay. I'm just going to sit here in silence for a second because that'll obviously spice it up a little bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Club Vision dynamic, changing them through the season. So instead of going, oh, you need the best youth academy, maybe being a bit more realistic and going, well, that's a bit silly, isn't it? So I looked at what we said you've got to do here. That's really silly. Let's adjust it. Let's get like the top 5 new systems in the country, and then
I think some dynamism would be excellent in the game. I think it's certainly they've added it in the squad, in the morale and things like that. There's more dynamics going on. We've got the dynamics tab, of course, and all the things going on in that section. So to add that into the board and into your backroom staff would certainly be a little bit of spice, I think. As a fan of a club that has been asset stripped, it's not that fun. So I can see where people would lose interest in saves if suddenly the chairman was like, oh, actually, I never existed, and I'm now the person taking over is now going to go to prison for bank things. That would be always fun, I'm sure. It worked really well on stream. If suddenly your club was capitulated financially. Interestingly, on the big save, where I have a loan farm, I've just had my transfer budget removed suddenly, which is £179 million that they've just taken away from me, which was quite interesting due to differences in finance. So there's a little bit of it, like you can have that kind of financial curve where at the end of the Premier League season, you get all the season tickets and you get all the TV money, and then it goes down throughout the season because your wages are ridiculous. And then it goes back up again. And when you get to that down point, sometimes the board react. And that's what's happened in this particular transfer window. They've gone, nope, we're not doing well financially. You cannot buy anyone, which is always fun as well. Whereas, interestingly, on the Santa Clara save, where I have had no money, I've just sold my biggest asset for £20 million. And that is ridiculous money for Santa Clara. And then I've done the same as Jeb, and literally, as we were speaking, requested all the facilities work, and they've gone, yeah, okay, we've got some money now. Sure, you can have 700k to improve the youth facilities from an 8 to a 9. So there is, when you get that little bit of money, there is that little bit where they change their mind, but it would be nice to see that in the objectives, in the kind of club vision center, where they're like, you know what, we're going to change mid-season our objective, and we're now going to be a club that farms the youth players, or we're now going to be a club that has to sell because we don't have much money anymore. So I definitely would like to see that. It's a little bit in the game. I'd say it needs a little bit more work in FM25.
To take it off on tangents again, with the new graphics engine, wouldn't it be great if you just went halfway through the season, right, I'm going to go into the boardroom, and then you're in a prison meeting room. It's just all the graphics in the background. Like, oh God!
Picking up the phone to speak to them through the glass.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, boss.
Vladimir, I need £40 million. No,
I need £20 in my commissary, and then we can have a conversation. And there you go. I'm in. Combine that with the Willy Wonka element, and then you've got SI. Are you listening?
Yeah,
you should be, because we've cracked it. We've cracked it. 20 million players in the first week, and then 3 in the second. That's what people are going to expect from FM25. I think it's a great shout. But yeah, I think realistic mid-season amendments or amendments to your club vision. I think even if, because again, it either seems to be use the youth facilities, or you don't see much between that and have the best one in the country. A middle ground, maybe the youth facilities are or the youth system is currently rated a 12. Let's see if we can improve it incrementally to a 14 over the course of the next couple of years. You go, oh yeah, that sounds achievable. Actually, let's do that rather than just ambiguous best one in the country or use it, because even when you don't use it, that never seems to be something that's never been a reason for me to, fail at a club. When you have your end of season review, it's like, well, you've won competitions, but you didn't use the use system enough. So sorry, bye-bye. We're going to can you. It doesn't seem to be one of those like arbitrary kind of reasons for an unjustified sacking. It doesn't seem to be one of the glitchy ones. Like I think Kev had it last season, didn't he? With his, he wasn't using set pieces enough, so he just couldn't get a new job, which is an absolute madness. Although since then, if it's inspired me to do anything, it's to constantly have, play for set pieces and every single tactic I've ever made, just in case. But it doesn't seem to be that bad. But I think it needs to impact on the game a little bit more. Give me dynamic board objectives, and again, the concept of the insane chairman. That for me screams success. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, you've met your objectives, but again, like Jeb says, we've just sold off your training facilities to your rival, and the entirety of the youth team as well, and half your backroom staff. Your striker you've now got, but he's on Klarna, so you have to pay £50 a minute for him. Otherwise, the debt collectors come around, and if you can't pay, they take him away. We're having great ideas today. We're having really, really good ideas, and I'm here for them. Fellas, I think before we start to wrap this up, because this has been wonderful, and I've had a really, really nice time talking. I didn't think it was going to go where it went today, and I'm really, really glad it went where it did. Before we start to kind of wrap it up, I mean, Jeb, you've touched quite a lot over the course of today on your Sheffield United save. How's things going in Sheffield at the moment? Because it's been a hot minute, I think, since we've kind of had a conversation about it.
Yeah, I can't remember how far we got. I think I've mentioned like the signings that we made at the start. So we signed Dovbyk, obviously the big striker. We signed Rutter on a free, and then we brought in Alex Collado, who I'm a convert to Alex Collado now. My word, that boy. He's so good. He's so good. But yeah, we brought McAtee. We can't change it up. We had a lot of money. They've got a South Korean owner. So we're in the championship. They finished 9th the season before, so that's why we came in. And we did all right, hit the ground running. Like, Jonathan Rose out on the left, I think he's just moved to Marseille in real life, actually. Everyone seems to be moving to Marseille, I've noticed, including unwanted people. So yeah, we did all right. So for the first 39 weeks, we were top of the league all the way through. We got to January, we need to refresh a bit. We brought in Penaloza, who is we signed a wonder kid from PSG. It's kind of the wrong way to do things. Also looking at Cucurella, he's also dubbed to be the next Fernando Hierro, so I'll take that. That's fine for me. So we did really well. Like between from November, we had a bit of a wobble, and I was looking to try and go for the record points total, which was 106 points, and this should be quite easily done. December and January won every single game except the last game, which we lost to Derby. But then February we did all right. We got through the FA Cup 5th round and drew Leeds in the quarter-final, which led us to Friday night. Came up on Friday night, did a bit of a stream. Started in the FA Cup quarter-final versus Leeds. We lost 3-1. We were quite woeful, to be fair. It was a bit annoying. We just couldn't get going. We did sign... I need to now look at his name. There you go. Looked at his name and we're going to say it correctly. Samu Amoriodion. Yeah, or Samu, as everyone calls him. Who apparently nearly signed for Chelsea for 33 million this summer, but instead he's gone to Porto for 12 million. I'm not saying Chelsea are being ripped off, but that's quite funny, I found. They've got him for 21 million less than what he's supposed to go for. We signed him in. He's a phenomenal advanced forward. He's also 6'4", so he's nice and big, so you can throw stuff onto his head. He got 8 goals in. I think 7 starts and made a fair few sub appearances. Got a bit injured. So we lost to Leeds. Then we played Watford, who were second. They destroyed us. They beat us as well, 3-1. We just couldn't get into the game. We were 3-0 down at half time. We couldn't really turn it round from there. So that took us down to second place. And then we played a couple of other games. Played West Brom. Just couldn't get through West Brom's defence, and we drew them 1-1. So we were starting to slip. And we'd lost the record points total. That had all gone. Played Portsmouth. Actually, there you go. We played West Brom. We drew with them. Then we played Portsmouth. Destroyed them 3-0. It's like, yes, we're back on it. We're back on it. This will go well. Brilliant. Then we played Bradford, who were 22nd in the league. And I went all out. I went 4-2-4. We need to score loads of goals. I want to go for the title here. We need the goal difference on our side. Watford were losing at the time. I was like, this will work quite nicely. And then we just lost 1-0 against Bradford. So that was really, really quite annoying. And then my final 2 games were against 4th place Fulham and 3rd place Nottingham Forest. And because we've been drawing and losing all stuff like that, we've gone from top of the league from 6 points to only being a point ahead of Nottingham Forest. We then drew with Fulham, and then I think Forest drew as well. So there was still, I think there was a 2-point gap between us. So we needed to draw or win the final game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So we started the first half, and Nottingham Forest went 2-0 up. And they were relentless with their attacking as well. So not even like Nottingham Forest is actually a rival of Sheffield United. I think it's because they played a lot of playoff games and there is like a 40-mile gap between them. So they are regional rivals as well. So it's like, I'm losing to a rival. I've already lost to Leeds. We're annoyed at that, even though Leeds are in the Premier League. Like the board had gone from an A+, and I was like flirting on a B-, even though I was still in second place and going to get promoted when they expected us to like limp into the playoffs. So we're 2-0 down. We made a couple of changes. We brought on one of our youth players, Christian Evans, who's a central midfielder, who was somebody who were promoted up because our central midfielder. We've got McAtee, Dylan Levitt, and then Sulemana as a ball-winning midfielder. So we play 3 in the middle. They were working quite well. It's just, it was either McAtee played well or Levitt played well. They never both played well. So I brought on this Christian Evans, I think it was for Levitt in the end. McAtee gets a goal, so we're 2-1. That's 60 minutes. And then Penaloza, he's like a wonder kid. I set him a target of getting 15 goals and they could be a regular starter. He played, how many games did he play? Let's just have a quick look. He played 25 games and got 3 goals. He just kept on missing. It's like his composure's 14, so it's not terrible, but he just kept on missing really easy chances. He had another one. He was offside. Forest hit the post 4 times. So like, I was just like, we're not doing well here. And then Penaloza got the ball. Dovbyk was alongside, so both of those two were up front. I think somebody got injured actually, which hadn't helped us along. So Penaloza was coming in from the right hand side. Dovbyk's there on the penalty spot, waiting for it. Penaloza went nah and just curled one into the top corner. Just like perfect. 2-2, game on. We're still in it. And then Forest hit the post a couple more times just to put thingy. And then we had a breakaway. I'd actually gone. What had I gone down to? So I don't know why I was holding on to a 2-2. I don't know why I went like that. But I'd gone to a 4. I can't even describe it. Basically, I had 4 across the back. Then I had 2 wing backs in front of the full backs because they were just getting all the action on the wing. 2 in the middle and 2 up front. That works. That numbers? Yeah, sure. Why not? That adds up to 10.
Maths.
Yeah, maths. Easy. And then they kept on getting corners. We just were dreadful at defending corners. It was never the corner. It was always the second ball. Like whenever they got the ball on the outside of the box, we were just dreadful at defending it. And kept on having it. Then we had a breakaway. And who turned up but our youth prospect, Christian Evans, and we won 3-2 and we've been promoted. So we are Premier League. I know, exactly.
Love that.
Yeah. What was supposed to be a quick 2-hour stream, I thought I'll get promoted like after, like by the time April comes around, ended up being a 4-hour stream with me, nearly dying of embarrassment because we completely bottled a promotion. But no, we got promoted. So onward to the Premier League next. We need some improvements, but the Korean man has lots of money, so it's quite nice.
That helps. That does help. I mean, it's a tricky one for me because as a fan of Jebaru the human being, I'm delighted for you. As a fan of Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, yeah.
Other news: Morecambe's manager was, I think it was James Garner. It was a Garner of some sort. He was Morecambe's manager after I left, and then he went to Derby. So they appointed a new manager, Henning Berg. He went in there. I know.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Of
course it does.
Yeah.
And he brought in an assistant manager.
Yeah.
It's only Rosie, isn't it? Roy Keane's the assistant manager at Morecambe.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yep.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, and when he finds out, he's going to be devastated. He's going to be so upset.
No, he loves Morecambe.
He
To the
loves
seaside.
loves Morecambe, hates me. There you go. The Roy Keane experience.
I definitely didn't try to sign him as assistant manager at Sheffield United just to make it even nicer for you.
Course not. Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, look, congratulations. Premier League football. What an achievement. I hope it all goes as well as it possibly can. But if you do get relegated, again, objectively very funny because it's Sheffield United. I am bitter.
Looking at their record in the Premier League so far, first season, which is obviously this season, or last season, should I say, they got 13 points.
Ooh.
And then they went up again with Carlo Cudicini as manager, because, you know, football.
Because, of course.
Yeah. They went up again and they got 26 points. So if I get 39 points, that hopefully might be enough. Carlo Cudicini is also now my assistant manager, which is just weird. Like he's like in the favoured personnel, but he was manager of them for 5 years, and he just like stepped back and gone, "Oh, Jebaru can do it. It's fine." So yeah, there we go.
That I think that's the first time I've ever heard of that, especially this year. Like your favoured personnel, a manager of the club for a significant amount of years, then takes a step back and then joins the backroom staff at that club. I mean, look, in my What's the Story save, we all know that, you know, of course, Jurgen Klopp is Manchester City's director of football, which makes complete sense. Makes nothing but sense to me. So it's so weird that that's happened. But I think that Cudicini spending 5 years at the club and then joining the backroom staff at the same club, that's weirder. No? That's
no,
weird.
he wasn't. He was only there for 2 seasons, so he got promoted, then moved to Genoa, but then he left Genoa and came to Sheffield United. But he was signed before I signed as well, so he was signed as the assistant manager before I signed. I don't know if they signed him as the manager and went, "Oh, actually, Jebaru is a better choice," so you just step down a bit. Evil chairman modifier.
There you go. They gave him the contract, but there was just like a bit of sticky tape over the word assistant on the display. They peeled it off. You're the assistant manager, Carlo, and fine.
Actually, look at him. He's a terrible coach. See you later.
Now we actually break this down. Yeah, he stinks.
Yeah, he does. He's awful. Like, he's not even good at coaching goalkeepers. You had one job as a player and you're not even good at it. Tell people how to do it. Yeah.
That's literally the remit, Carlo. You've just got to be good at that. Oh, that's
cool.
No wonder you nearly bottled it. It's Carlo's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all Carlo's fault. It's all Carlo's fault. So right, when you face a penalty, stand with your back to the striker. There you go. He's full of good ideas. Full of good ideas, is Carlo. Well, congratulations. I'm very much looking forward to hearing how you get on with Sheffield United in the Premier League over the next few months. And I hope it goes adequately. And if it doesn't, just go back to Morecambe. And then there you go. Shift Henningberg. You go back to Morecambe. And then it's you and Roy Keane against the world. What more could you want from a football
just
manager?
do that at Sheffield United.
Could just do that at Sheffield United, couldn't you? Do you reckon you could talk Roy into it? You could talk him into it. He'd love a bit of that. Of course he would. Why wouldn't he? There you go. Here's our question to you, the audience, this week. Look, we've talked about some very, very weird backroom appointments here. Because it's one of the hallmarks of a good FM save. Let us know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Send us a tweet. Contact us in some capacity with your weirdest backroom appointments of FM24 so far. We would like to hear them. I love a very, very strange backroom signing. Absolutely love them. It's one of the things that I live for. Seriously, since I found out Jurgen Klopp is the director of football at Man City, I go back to it every couple of hours just to look at it. I'm like, look at this. Look at this. Ridiculous. Like a massively long and successful career at Liverpool. Then he went to AC Milan, didn't win Serie A, and then just threw his toys at the Prem and went, no, I'm not managing anymore ever again. I'm just going to go and sign youth players for Man City, which apparently they can do. There you go. It's come full circle. Look at this. He uses the dev center. You can guarantee that Klopp uses it. Lads, that was lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. I've had a really, really nice time this morning. I'm not surprised by that in the slightest. It doesn't shock me that I've had a nice time this morning, but a nice time has been had by everybody. Before we wrap this up, though, fellas, I'd like you all to start plugging yourselves, if that's okay. Stakey is the newest member of the FM team. If people want to, interact with you or watch you making content in any capacity, where can they do so?
Best place probably at the moment is YouTube, just at the Steak Bake on YouTube. And I'm at the Steak Bake on pretty much everything except for Twitch, which I am planning on starting back up again with Santa Clara very soon, hopefully. And that is the_steak_bake. And that's the only difference. Underscores, always fun.
Underscores. Lovely. That's excellent news. I'm really, really glad to hear you might be getting Santa Clara back on our screens on the Twitch soon. That's really exciting stuff. It's going to be good. Jeb, if people would like to watch you and Carlo Cudicini having the best time in the Premier League with Sheffield United, where can they do that?
Carlo Cudicini's not there. I've sacked him.
Breaking news.
He's gone.
If they can watch you and insert assistant manager name here.
Yeah, exactly. Sorted.
Yeah, where can they do that?
Twitch.tv/Backroom. On Amazon Prime, I think I mentioned it. The Sven documentary is actually a really nice watch. He's obviously a sad time in Sven's life, but there's a nice little speech at the end. And then actually looking back through his England career, you just realise how much the press was a bit of a poopy head, to use a Kev word to him. But yeah, there's some nice bits in it.
Good. Lovely. There you go. Amazon Prime. Check out the Sven documentary. That's everyone's homework this week. Have a little watch. D, if people would like to watch you getting your Retro Albion on, where can they do that?
Best place to do that would be over on Twitch. That is D-Boy Plays, DEEBOI Plays.
Super duper.
How about you, Rich?
How about me? Well, who knows? Twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM. That's where you can find me. I'm now in what I believe is going to be the final chapter of What's the Story Former Glory. I did a madness, did all the good things with Dortmund, and then this is the last time I streamed just before I went away on holiday. Won everything with Dortmund, and then went job hunting for a bit. Then no jobs came up, so I ended the stream. And then I watched our friend Callum streaming for about half an hour as I was just clicking through the calendar, and then got the Porto job. So my ambition to ruin everything for Benfica, that's what we're going to do. It's Operation Revenge against Benfica for turning me down in an interview 6 seasons ago. Hate them.
Learn.
They will rue the day. They will rue the day. So yeah, if you want to come and watch me managing Porto, trying to dethrone Benfica, twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM. As I say, I think this is going to be the final chapter for What's the Story now as we start to approach FM25. And before we went live as well, we were talking about the possible return, whisper it to everybody, of the Football Manager Therapy Network save. Keep your eyes peeled on the socials at FMTPod on Twitter or X or whatever Elon's calling it this week. Follow us on that. And then when you get the updates for when we're going live with the network save, because there is a story to finish. Golly gosh, we're going to finish it this year. Very, very excited to do that. Fellas.
Can you close the podcast properly? Because Callum tried to do it last week and he just didn't go. He didn't say the right words. He didn't say the right sequence of words and it annoyed me.
Okay, shall I try and do it now?
No, the fellas, that feels like you haven't said that yet. So
I was about to.
Yeah, cool. That's just double checking, yeah.
It's the sentence I was saying when you
cool. Just double checking.
Interrupted me. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Sorted.
Cool. Right, fellas. I don't know about you, but that feels very much like a podcast to me. Yeah,
very much.
Feels quite podcasty. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. To D, to Steak, and to Jeb. It's been absolutely lovely. Welcome again to the Steakity Bakety. We're very excited to have you here. It's been wonderful. Thank you all for joining me this morning. And thank you, the audience, for watching, for listening, however you're consuming this podcast. We appreciate you enormously. It's very, very sweet of you. That wraps it up for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye. that's lovely.